Summer 2023, Paul's vacay trip, coupled with a little fieldwork. Irene has taken to volunteering at parks during the summer, in part to serve, but also to escape the big heat of Tucson. This year for Irene, the Oregon coast and a lighthouse park. I always take time off to visit her and to see whatever park she has chosen for the summer, so I flew to Portland and drove down to Newport for a week of beaches, tide pools, birding, and lighthouses. Plus, cooler weather and a whole new rack of patches, always a plus for me. Irene's Park this summer is the Yaquina Head Outstanding Natural Area, managed by the original BLM, Bureau of Land Management. On the coast, a head is a small peninsula of land that juts out into the ocean, making for a dangerous obstacle to seafarers, but also making an obvious place to put a lighthouse. Indeed, Yaquina has a lighthouse, and while lighthouses are picturesque in principle, the Yaquina Lighthouse is particularly photogenic. Turning the corner and seeing it for the first time, it is breathtaking. Get up close to it, it continues to capture the eye. Stand back for the long view, still mesmerizing. See it at different times of the day, it never ceases to beguile. If the sun is out from behind the marine fog, the sunset potential is world class. This lighthouse takes center stage in the patches for Yaquina, and there's an entire art form depicting this lighthouse in various media. The Yaquina Lighthouse deserves all the attention it gets. Lighthouses employ optics known as the Fresnel lens, named for its inventor, Augustin Fresnel, French. He lived long ago. A surprisingly small light source is all that is needed, because it hits the Fresnel prisms in such a way that all the light is directed straight outward. In this way, light from lighthouses can be seen for up to 20 miles. Hence the boast that the Fresnel lens has, quote, saved 1 million ships. It also adds a twist to the venerable light bulb joke. Having seen Yaquina up close, we checked out other nearby lighthouses. Down coast, the Hasita Head Lighthouse is equally charming, and its patch is especially attractive. While there, check out the cool bridge, designed by Conda McCullough, who did many of the iconic bridges of the Oregon coast. Up coast, the Cape Meares Lighthouse might top them all for sheer elegance. A red shield adds to its mystique, and while this lighthouse itself is short, Cape Meares is tall, making for dramatic vistas of the ocean. There's also a notable tree there, the octopus tree. This is a Sitka spruce, a common species along the coast, and this one grew from several stems at the base, hence its name. Back at Yaquina, Irene works the visitor center, the lighthouse, and tide pools. She gets around by bike, which has to be one of the best cycle commutes anywhere. And there are many rocky sea stacks just offshore, loaded with pelagic birds. This is one of those teeming spectacle of life things where thousands of birds occupy the rocks in tightly packed colonies. The common murre is abundant, but many other species reside here, including pigeon guillemot, especially attractive with its red legs. Birders come here from all over, intent on checking off species on their life list. My week on the Oregon coast went fast, and I was sorry to leave Irene and Yaquina, but I'm still employed and doing research, so work beckoned me back to Portland and up to Mount St. Helens. The eruption of St. Helens in May of 1980 was a defining moment for anyone alive at the time to experience a truly big geological event. Prior to 1980, the volcano was classically symmetrical, dubbed the Mount Fuji of America. The eruption started with a landslide, the largest landslide ever recorded, with the volcano losing over 1,000 feet of its summit and north flank. Newly freed of that ginormous weight, the gases held below ground let loose, sending an explosive lateral blast to the north and, later, a plume of fragments tens of thousands of feet high into the atmosphere, resulting in photos that became immortal. The lower flanks of St. Helens were forested, but 1980 wiped out everything close to the mountain, including tens of thousands of trees. Many tree victims wound up in Spirit Lake, which had been home to various summer camps and resort lodges, but was completely buried by the initial landslide. While not obvious to casual viewers, the bottom of current Spirit Lake is well above the top of old Spirit Lake. What is obvious is the raft of logs floating in Spirit Lake still today, 43 years after the eruption. Research I'm involved with needs ring growth samples of trees that died a few decades ago. I was asked if such a resource exists. Yes, Spirit Lake, with its thousands of trees that died in 1980. While in the Portland area, why not check out these logs to see if they can be sampled? A friend and expert on St. Helens, Pat from nearby Centralia College, agreed to show me around the mountain. Pat wrote the book on St. Helens, so this tour was going to be excellent. We went to the Harmony Falls trailhead, from which it was an hour hike to Spirit Lake. We found many logs on the shore as driftwood, so it wasn't necessary to go swimming to sample these trees. The raft of floaters migrated towards us as we cored, and by the time we got back to the trailhead, that entire lobe of Spirit Lake was again occupied with floating logs. This field work was totally successful. Thanks, Pat, for spending time with me and showing me interesting stuff about Mount St. Helens. I did, indeed, have a blast. By the way, there's no end of patches for such a monumental site as Mount St. Helens. Here is a couple more found while hitting gift shops along the way. The St. Helens fieldwork went so well and so quickly, I had a couple of days to fill. The next volcano north in the Cascades is Mount Rainier, bigger than St. Helens, and one of the granddaddy parks of the National Park System. Having never visited Rainier and being so close to it, I turned north for the day. The drive up was lovely, alternating between farmland and forest up to the fabled entryway into Rainier. In the park, the terrain alternated between volcanic, glacial, and landslide deposits. This waterfall, called Narada, was a showstopper. Rainier still has bona fide glaciers on it, not just snow from the most recent winter, but ice from long ago. However, currently Rainier's glaciers are retreating dramatically, shedding great gobs of water and sediment into drainages. Waterfalls are pretty in the short term, but the Rainier situation is worrisome in the long term, I'm afraid. The destination on the south side of Rainier is Paradise Inn, one of America's great resort lodges. This building is so large it's hard to photograph. Constructed in the 19-teens, the beams are Alaskan yellow cedar procured from the area. Even the furniture is grandiloquent, big and comfy. From Paradise, it's possible to hike up Rainier all the way to the summit if you dared and had mountaineering gear and skills. I hiked up as far as time allowed and then took a selfie and retreated back down. Rainier is within sight of Seattle, so if or when it erupts again, there will probably be some no-school days. Either way, Mount Rainier is an essential destination globally. One more day to fill before flying back to the Big Heat. I went east from Portland up the Columbia River Gorge, the state line between Oregon and Washington. Both states have a highway along the river, and I drove the Oregon side this time. First stop was Multnomah Falls, a 600-foot cascade that is easy to see, including from a footbridge partway up. Get there early, though, as the hardest part about seeing Multnomah is parking. By mid-morning, there is none. Various patches exist for Multnomah, including one of Bigfoot. Bigfoot, not really a thing for me, but it is a pretty big deal up here. I saw hundreds of patches, decals, and other knickknacks dedicated to Bigfoot on this trip. So be it. Next up was the Bonneville Dam, a colossal infrastructure on the Columbia River. The dam generates electricity for a sizable fraction of the Pacific Northwest, and barges pass through its locks going up and down river. Fish ladders allow migrating salmon to get past the dam as well. The hatchery has salmon, of course, but the star occupant of the hatchery is Herman the sturgeon, a giant fish weighing in at a few hundred pounds. Sturgeon are native to the river and get quite large out in the wild. This Herman is Herman III, in his mid-90s by now, according to his Facebook page. They can live a long time, and I've seen some version of Herman here at Bonneville my whole life. Sturgeons get their own cartoons, mostly for the predictable punchline here. Good trip, lots seen and done. Portland is highly recommendable for vacation because of its variety of things to see and do. Thanks to all who met with me along the way, especially Irene at Yaquina Head and Pat at St. Helens. Can't wait for next year and another summer trip.